If you're tired of the same old video mixer effects, then the MX-1 is the video mixer that you want to select for your studio. This unit beats out the Panasonic AVE5 and AVE7 hands down, and it's in the same price range. Suggested retail around $1,200. If you do some careful shopping, it can be had for around $1,050 to $1,100. Watch carefully the effects on the tape, and you'll see why the Videonics MX-1 is the mixer that you will choose for your studio. This is the front panel of the Videonics MX-1 Special Effects Generator Mixer. And let's go over some of the controls. In the upper left-hand corner of the front panel, you will see the power indicator switch. Just above it is an LED that comes on when the power is applied. This is what's called the T-bar, or take bar, and it is a manual control where the play key is an automatic control. When you press play, a transition is completed in a pre-sequenced automatic amount of time. With the T-bar, you can initiate the transition in a manual mode, in other words, controlling the time of the transition as the T-bar is moved from one end to the other. In the upper left-hand corner here of the front panel, you will see the audio-video switch and lights, LEDs, next to it. In the default power-up position, both LEDs are on, and they indicate a mode of audio or video selection and programming, which we'll get into later in the videotape. This switch is called the input effects switch. The next button, this large one, is a fade dissolve switch. This is called wipe. This is zoom picture in picture, and flip. These take you to various menu areas that are preset in the MX-1 that allow you to select transitions. This key is the freeze key, and it now allows you to freeze a transition or a video input. This is the speed key. The speed key allows you to step through the speed of the transition, 9 being the fastest speed and 0 being the slowest speed. These are the arrow keys, and they are used in selecting transitions from the main menu, from sizing picture in picture, and allowing you to move a picture-in-picture frame around on the screen. We'll cover some of those effects of the arrow keys as we go through the tape. This button is called back color, which allows you to select the background color. This is called the border color, which is a bar or a colored line of a narrow width that goes around a frame. You can use border color around a picture, or you can use border color around a colored background frame. These two items, these two keys, are capable of selecting individualized colors. These are labeled cut, A, B, C, and D. Those are what are commonly known in the manual as current, which it would be current source. So if you had a to B transition, the A light would be on and it would be the current source. So A, B, C, and D are selectable current sources. A, B, C, and D at the bottom of the keyboard are what are called next source, which would be the transition from whatever your current source is here to whatever is selected as next here. So if I wanted to do, let's say, an A to A transition, I would push A and A. I could complete a transition, but it would be a transition effect to the same source. This is your numerical keypad, and the numerical keypad is used for various functions like directly selecting a transition or directly selecting a speed. This is called the reverse key. The reverse key allows you to select a different transition progression. In other words, if you have a transition from left to right and you want to bring the transition back, you'd push the reverse key, which reverses the direction of the transition. So if the initial transition went left to right across the screen, once that transition was done, you could push this key and the transition would come back the other direction. The OK key is used when you are done in various modes, and that's something we'll cover later in the videotape. This is the display key, which displays your preview screen on your preview monitor. By pressing the display key, you can always get back to the preview screen. The demo key just demonstrates for the user the various transitions, and it selects those in a randomized fashion between 0 and 229. This is the setup key. This is the learn key, which allows you to learn transitions, up to 25 transitions, so they can be sequenced from memory. This is chroma key. This allows you to enter the chroma key effect and setup. This is compose. Compose allows the user to compose various background colors, bars, pictures on the screen, a lot of different things, and we'll cover that when we get into the compose section as well. The shift key is utilized nothing more as a secondary function key, and it's generally used in combination with another sequence of keys. If you wanted to execute, let's say, a learn sequence, you would press shift and play simultaneously, and that would put you into the learn sequence mode of whatever you had programmed in. And what would happen at that point, the power LED would begin to flash to indicate that it was in a learn sequence mode, so that every time you initiated a T-bar transition or a play key transition, that the first learn sequence would start and complete, and then the next sequence would be available the next time you initiated it from either the play or the T-bar. This is the rear view of the Videonics MX-1. As you can see, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 inputs for video and audio. Input number 4 can snatch its audio from input number 3 in a programmed learn mode, and 1 output. Each input has Super VHS connections and RCA connections for composite video. Your audio left and right are made at RCA connections. This one, input number 4, can be programmed to take one of the audio inputs from input number 3. This is the output, which is available in SVHS or composite video and audio left and right. For those of us that like to look over the top of equipment from the front, all the connections are also labeled upside down on the back, because when you're looking over it from the top side, it's sometimes a little difficult to read these, so everything's labeled upside down. And so if you're looking at it from the top, everything's readable. Let's shift to the other side. And look at our connections here. This is the preview out jack, which you run to your preview monitor so you can see the transition effects, etc., that you're setting up. This is your headphone jack, so you can monitor what's going on in the audio channels that are being fed through the MX-1. This is the GPI, which is a trigger input that you will use if you want to remotely trigger an effect if you have an A/B roll editing system that has a GPI programmed output. And this is the power jack, and it has a calculator type power supply and a ferrite bead on the cable to prevent any RFI from inside the case getting down into the power system. The unit has a very small footprint. The entire unit is only 12 inches wide, 9.5 inches deep, and about 4 inches high, and it's very lightweight. It only weighs about 4 pounds. Here we have our preview screen. The preview images are available in 4 separate boxes at the top of the screen. Of course, they're not shown in real time because they're multiplexed and updated. We currently have an input generated by an Amiga computer on source A. B is a miniaturized version of our preview screen. C has no input, and D is an input from a video camera that's positioned about 4 feet above the Videonics MX-1. The current source is always highlighted in yellow and at the top of the box, so B is our current source. And B also indicates that we can hear the current source audio from our headphone jack, and that B has the current audio source. A is highlighted in green, which indicates the next source after the transition, and also indicates that audio will follow to the A channel. Down below it, and we can page down through several screens here, but we have the highlighted boxes that identify the transition effects. The transition effect that's selected by the operator is highlighted, as you can see, in blue. The arrow indicates direction, and the number indicates the speed. In the upper right-hand corner, we have a box that indicates the background color and the border color. We can change the background color and the border color, which is currently set at 0, and we can come in here, and you'll see on D channel my hand moving in, and I'm going to push the background color, and we stepped it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I can step the border color 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 is a user-defined color, and you can define it to anything you want. Let's move the border color back to black, and what we'll do is we'll play with the color. We'll push cut color, and by holding the shift button and using 1 and 4, I can shift the color up and down. By holding shift and using 2 and 5, I can change the saturation of the color. And by holding shift and pressing 3 or 6, I can change the lightness of the color. Okay, let's do a setup for a transition from A to B. This is source A, and on B channel we have some vases, and we'll transition back to A again. Let's get our preview screen back again. The previous transition was a manual effect utilizing the T-bar, and we did a dissolve from A to B and then B back to A. You'll see the speed is changeable 0 through 9, 9 being the fastest, 0 being the slowest. And we can change the wipe or the transition arrow indicator with the reverse button. This means that a transition will occur in one direction or the other, A to B, B to A. Or by pressing Shift and the reverse, you'll see it turns into an automatic where you fade in one direction, and then by initiating a transition it will actually go the other direction. You can accomplish the same thing, of course, by after the transition pushing the reverse button here, and that would allow the change to the opposite direction on the next transition. Let's see if we can select something that's interesting. You'll also notice that the transition effect, direction, and speed, once programmed into one area, stays with all the areas. The one I like, actually, is 229. It's a rotating box. Rotates in an X and a Y axis. Whoop. Let's go over here to 229. And we'll give it a speed of 0. We will go ahead and get our vases back. And let's hit play. Interesting transition. Let's go back to B, which is our preview screen. Let's go over and take a look at the setup screen. And the setup screen is accessible from this push button on the side, marked Setup. And it will show us the inputs for audio and video. Currently we're looking at A channel by pressing A, and you'll see where it says in1 we've selected audio, left and right, and composite video. We can change the video to S-video input, or we could say we want the audio from channel 1 to appear at A, but we want the video, composite video or S-video, from channel 4 to appear there. And as you can see, I've now routed my video from D to A. So I could have sound from a source on A, but the video from D showing up. Or we could move it over and select from channel 3 or 2, or just leave it where it was. Audio can be selected in the same fashion. We can move the audio to wherever we want. Except in the case of 3, we could have monaural source on left, routing that into 1, monaural source on right, routing it into 1, or have no audio at all coming into the unit. So if we want to record in video only with no audio present, we would do this and eliminate any illumination of audio selection in the setup screen. Default comes up with A going to in1, B going to in2, C going to in3, and D going to in4. Now when you first power the unit up, let's back up here to C, the unit scans for any video present on any inputs. and will select the correct video and audio signals if they are present and lock them into those positions. If there's nothing present, the unit will default to S video, which is apparent in input 3. Since I have nothing on C channel, it has defaulted to the S video input. And by going to D, it has selected composite, which is what my camera is feeding. And when you're done, you can just go ahead and either push the OK button, which will take you back to preview, or you can hit the display button and everything is done. Let's go back to D, which is our mixer, and you will see up here a button marked audio and video. The lights that are over here on this side, the light up here indicates audio and video because of the split key. The lights tell you whether the next transition will affect the audio or the video or both, and the buttons let you change the lights between 3 possibilities. In possibility 1, the audio and video lights are both on. If the audio light is on only, which is this case, the next transition will affect the sound, but the pictures will be unchanged. And if we have video only selected, the next transition will affect the video, but the sound will be unchanged. So you would be able to switch your inputs here, but the sound would stay with the original channel, which in this case is D, which is feeding our camera. So if I was feeding audio in with the camera, I could transition to B and the audio would follow, but the video, the video would follow the cut to B, but the audio would still be fed from the camera, which is good if you're filming a situation where you've only got one microphone and you're going to be doing all your transitions, say between 3 cameras, and you've only got one microphone, say on a speaker, then you would want the mic audio to be routed through the unit no matter which camera you went to. If you wanted source audio to fade, which is automatic in this unit, let's say you were editing or you had 2 cameras strategically located quite a distance apart, and both of them had microphones and they were picking up different sounds. If both lights are illuminated here, then what will happen is when the transition takes effect, either with a T-bar or by hitting play, the sound will fade down with the current channel as it transitions to the next channel. But if you wanted the audio to stay, then you would have the video light only on, and in which case the transition would take effect, but the audio would stay steady throughout. We want to also look at input effects, which is this button, and so we'll push it. Let's select A for the input effect. On the special effects first position, this is black and white, and you can select either 1 or 0. Now these can be individually programmed for each channel. You can program one channel, then move to the next channel, move to the next channel, move to the next channel, and these all will stay with a given channel. Let's go in here and look at the first one. The first one, if I toggle it to a 1, will change the picture in channel A to black and white, and all the color will be removed. Let's take a look at A and see what it looks like. There it is with all the color removed. And we'll turn that back to a 0. The second one turns it into a black and white negative, which is the lightest values become dark, the darkest values become light, but the colors remain unchanged. Let's see what effect that has on channel A. There's an interesting effect. The next position is called color negative, where the lightest values become dark, the darkest values become light, and colors invert. For example, blue becomes yellow and red becomes blue-green. Let's see what that does. The next transition is a flip horizontal. The picture's flipped left to right, and I guess you'd call it a mirror image. Just remember the position of the blue and the green balls on channel A. The unit will switch positions. The next special effect is called flip vertical, and that is the picture's flipped upside down, but you will note that the video quality of the vertically flipped full screen image is reduced slightly, and this is by frame approximation. It's not quite as good as it was originally. Minor trade-off. The next position is a mosaic. This is where the picture is divided up into little tiles. Setting 1 divides the picture into many tiny tiles. 2 is a slightly smaller number. And 3 makes them the largest. So let's look at the tiny ones first. Then we'll look at them slightly larger. And then we'll look at them very large. And this one you can't even tell what the original picture was. This next input effect is called strobe. It's stroboscopic and it has 8 different levels of effect. And in this one the picture's video frame rate is slowed down. The effect is that the motion is halting or choppy. The higher number increases the effect. Setting 1 is the fastest strobe. It makes it look like an old-fashioned film. But the strobing effect is turned off during a transition. So let's go up here and we'll see exactly. Let's take a look at setting 4. Slowed down quite a bit. Now if we key in a transition, let's say between our spinning balls and the vases, you'll see that the effect speeded up. Let's change the speed of the rotating effect to the slowest so it will become more distinct. Rotate it back the other way, so we end up with the spinning balls on the final face. You can see how it stopped at the point where the transition came clear to the screen, momentarily hiccuped, and then the unit continued in its strobe mode. Let's go back to the input effect. And we will go to what's called paint or posterization. That has 8 levels, 0 through 7. And it changes the normally continuous tones of a picture into a smaller number of levels, and it results in a posterized or paint look. Higher numbers provide an extreme paint effect and lower numbers are closer to the original. So let's look at the colored balls on the tiles on 1. Effect is hardly noticeable. Let's see what happens here. Now that is a lot more noticeable. You can see the increase in the paint effect on the top of the screen and in the shadow reflection from the moving tile floor onto the balls. Let's go and set it to an extreme, which in this case is 7. Definitely a very strong effect. Okay, let's reset that to 0. And we'll go on to the last special input effect, and it's called solarization. And it can be toggled between 0 and 1. And it's modeled after a photography effect. It turns the lightest part of the picture negative, but it only affects pictures to a large extent where there's a lot of brightness in it, such as a sky, a white background, that type of thing. So on a darker colored background, it will have less of an effect than on something that's very, very bright. So I think what we need to do is change and put our vases in here on B, and we'll change our effect to B channel, go to the input effect, we'll set that for 1. You'll notice the solarization effect on the vases was quite subtle. The surface of the vases did get somewhat lighter and the background did get somewhat darker, but the change was fairly subtle. The MX-1 has a built-in color bar generator, and to display color bars you press the compose key and then you press shift and color at the same time, and the color bars will be displayed on the preview monitor. To display them on the output, press play, and that'll switch from the current source to the color bars, and you can press play again to switch back to the current source. It also allows you to use the unit for generating black burst for black tracking videotapes, and you can do that by pressing your cut color and selecting black as your background. Now the unit can put out 2 different levels. Normal default is 7.5 IRE, and the selectable is 0, which is typically referred to as blacker than black. 7.5 is generally a standard that can be used by almost all equipment. Let's try the compose mode here and see what we can create with the rotating balls. Okay, we'll bring up the compose screen, and you've got your target box. Now you can change the box's position with your up and down arrows, left and right. You can also change the size of it. If you push shift and right arrow, the box becomes wider. Left arrow, narrower. If you push the up arrow, it expands in both directions equally, and the down arrow expands it down equally. So let's make the box a little wider. We'll position it down towards the bottom. There we go. And we'll select what's on channel A and put it inside the box, which is the rotating balls. Of course, we could select what's on B and put it inside there, so we have a picture of rotating balls within a picture of rotating balls. If we did it again to channel A, we'd get back the original rotating balls. We can select our border color and put a border around it. Let's go up here. Make the box smaller. And we'll just put a background color in it with a border. Shall we put a picture in it? We can. Let me just take a picture out. Create another box. And we can create a picture within a picture within a picture. How about a nice border? We can freeze it all. You can also use Compose for just creating lines, like a color line. Make your box real small and then draw it out. We could center it. Just put in a color. And just move the same one up. Let me get a little creative with it. Put a border around it. Believe it or not, that's a picture in the top one. And we can freeze frame it all, start it up again. We can put our D channel in. If you ever wanted to film a subject in front of something where you weren't, then chroma key is an effect that you will really enjoy. The MX-1 has the chroma key feature, and what chroma key is that it allows you to combine two sources so that a defined range of colors in one picture is stripped away and replaced with a second picture. And that process of selectively replacing part of a picture is called keying. Rather than show you any more footage of demonstrations of the Videonics, I wanted to show you a tape that we did for a local customer that produces meat packaging equipment. And we want to show you what the Videonics MX-1 will actually do. I think you'll be really impressed with this. And now, a demonstration of the various mix and wipe effects of the MX-1. Thank you for watching this tape.